This spring, when my stimulus money came in, I decided I wanted to buy something that I wouldn't normally buy, and I wanted to buy something also made in the USA. So I decided to buy these work gloves made by Vermont Glove. They are rather expensive. They're $100 a pair. Now that's a lot for a pair of gloves, but they are very good gloves. They're a good quality glove made in the USA. Comparing them to other gloves that I have, like these big work gloves, these ones are really clumsy and stiff in comparison. Like, they're just really hard to work. They aren't quite as dexterous as these deerskin gloves, but they seem to be much more durable. I also have these, I think these were pigskin. So the leather on this pair of gloves hasn't worn out yet, but it is almost there. It's super thin and just starting to tear, and I have not used these gloves a whole lot. But I used them in the wet, and that just softened them right up, and they just started to tear. So some things about these gloves to notice: they put the seams on the outside, which at first I thought might impede dexterity, but it really doesn't. I'll show you that in a second. Um, the seams on the tip here, they've got extra leather so that it hides the stitches way inside. Like, you have to really peel it back to see the stitches. So that protects the thread and stitching up at the very tips. And overall, they're a really, solidly constructed glove. Compare that to like these gloves. In the end here, just fold it over once, and the stitches are actually kind of visible right there. You can feel them if you rub with your fingers. So if you were digging in the dirt or something, you could wear out the very tips of these a lot quicker than these Vermont gloves. So I have a couple of fasteners here. I'm going to show picking them up and kind of manipulating them a little bit with one hand with the pair of Vermont gloves. So a small nail I can pick up, move around, get between my fingers as if I was going to nail. Same with this nail. I can do this sort of maneuvering. It's not easy because these are kind of thick gloves, but I can do it. Yeah, that one's a little harder. So I can pick up nails and manipulate them, so they're dexterous enough for that sort of stuff. It's actually similar with the deerskin gloves. These are a bit more flexible, but actually this tip of the finger actually gets in the way a little bit more with that seam on the inside, because it's right at the very tip of my finger, so that sort of catches a bit more. But that's caught there. Yeah. Anyways. And then with like this big pair of gloves, pick them up, but yeah. Oh, yeah, so I can pick up nails, but man, that's a struggle to get them oriented so I can actually use them. I had to cheat there. So definitely provides more dexterity than these. I'd say it's comparable to these deerskin gloves. Yeah, and then these True Grip gloves are by far the most dexterous. These are really easy to work with. So I'd put the deerskin gloves at about the same level as these Vermont gloves. These ones are much tougher than the deerskin gloves. They've got that advantage. And they're just about as dexterous as far as actually picking stuff up and moving them. And of course, these things are just clumsy and awful. So another thing about the value of these gloves, I got these True Grip gloves. I got these True Grip gloves a couple of years ago, and I used them doing carpentry for a couple of months. And I don't know if you can see, but that seam is just about ready to blow out right along there. These vent holes are blowing out. And granted, this is a light duty pair of gloves, but I was also doing light duty work with them. I mean, carpentry isn't particularly that rough on the hands. Just picking up 2x4s, and probably mostly cement clapboards because I use these in the fall. So, yeah, and I think these were $15, and they fell apart. You know, they're about to break, and I got, a couple months use out of them, so it's not great. So these are great gloves. They seem really durable and really tough. One thing I wouldn't use them for, though, would be like welding, because they've got all the exposed stitching on the here and on the fingers, because all the seams are on the outside, and they're outside and on the back, which is great for dexterity and for general wear on your palm when you're picking up and grabbing stuff. But if you're welding, a lot of the damage comes from the back, and I can see these stitches just getting burned and then wrecking your nice $100 pair of gloves. So I'd grind wearing them and other stuff, but welding and the welding splatter, I feel like you're just asking for trouble with this type of glove. It's not really what they're made for. So are these gloves worth $100? Well, it's hard to know over the long term, depending on how long they last, what other pair of gloves you buy, and what else. But for me, I'm going to buy another pair of these when these wear out, because $100 for a couple years worth of work in a pair of gloves really doesn't add up to that much as far as my daily living expenses or budget or whatever else. These fit really well. They've got a great sizing thing. They've got good customer support. My dad bought a pair of these gloves also, and they didn't quite fit his hand because he's got thick fingers and thick short fingers, and they just didn't fit right. So he sent them in a tracing of his hand and a scan of his hand, and they made him a pair of gloves which fit his hand. I don't know if that's something they do routinely, but if you have odd shaped hands, this is the shape of my hands. If you have really long skinny fingers, or if you have short stubby fingers, they can probably make you a pair of gloves which will fit you. I don't want to speak for them. You can talk to their customer service, but they did it once, so they might do it again. And I can support a local company while buying a great product. So I'm going to buy another pair of them. They're great gloves. But every couple years, spend $100 on a good quality pair of work gloves that are made in the USA, made in Vermont. I'd definitely do it again. This video has not been brought to you by Vermont Glove. Just figured I'd share it with you. Share them. They're under new ownership now. They used to be Green Mountain Glove, and they changed the name to Vermont Glove, and they've been, sort of revamping their website, reselling stuff, trying to get back on their feet, back going again. So I figured if I can help out another Vermont person or company, I will. So check out their site. I've got no regrets over buying this pair of gloves.